no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give her introduction. That Carol Franks is a dedicated advocate for individuals with kidney disease and living donors. With three family members who have undergone kidney transplants, she is deeply invested in the cause. Carol serves as an administrator for Living Donors Online and the I Hate Dialysis Facebook group. She's been a longtime volunteer at RSN's Renal Teen Prom and various other programs. Carol and her husband live in Southern California. Check out her recent contributions to RSN, including Unlocking Hope, exploring kidney donor vouchers and innovative strategies for finding a donor, understanding and avoiding internet scams, advocating for preemptive kidney transplant, the journey to help my sister, and how to find a kidney donor. Would everybody please give me a warm welcome for Carol?
Just a little bit about my family. My dad passed away at 28 years old from an aneurysm related to polycystic kidney disease. And we didn't really know that until he was long gone, and we were small children when he died. But when we were in our 30s, someone told my sister, a nurse told my sister, that polycystic kidney disease was hereditary. And she was shocked. I was shocked. We had no idea because he was so young when he died. He didn't really even have that much medical history, but we did know from his autopsy that he had polycystic kidney disease. So, I was kind of worried about it. I worried that one of us would have it. The chances are 50-50, but I had already had one child, my daughter Jenna, and my sisters both had children. So it wasn't even really a discussion about not to have children. It was past that point, but we knew to keep an eye on our health, our blood pressure, and just to stay in touch with the doctor. So fast forward to many years later, my daughter Jenna was having trouble with bedwetting. She was a teenager. She was 14 years old, and sometimes her bed was wet, and she couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it. We took her to the doctor, and it wasn't our regular pediatrician, but it was the backup doctor. And she said, well, is there anything going on around your house right now? And I said, well, yeah, my husband just had 2 back surgeries, and it's been very stressful. And she said, well, the test, they did a urine test. It was inconclusive, so maybe try some therapy. So we went to a therapist for 6 months. Well, now she's having daytime wetting. So, you can imagine being in high school and that happening. It was just overwhelming. But we went back to the pediatrician, and he just about fell out of his chair. He said, didn't they do a blood test when you were here? And we said, no. And he immediately did blood tests, and he sent us to UCLA right away. So I was thinking she had polycystic kidney disease, even though I didn't have it or didn't have any indication that I had it. She, may have had that, and that really frightened me because she was so young. It turned out it was a rare bladder defect that damaged her kidneys, and I was kind of freaking out, and everybody said, I'm going to cry again every time I say this part, Lori. Everybody said, call Lori Hartwell. She was a child and a teen on dialysis. So I called Lori, and she spent, okay, it's 20 years. You think I'm going to ever stop crying on this? She spent an hour on the phone with me, and she really talked me down. She said, look, I have a husband, I have a business, I have dogs, I have a life, and she will be okay. And I just held on to every word, and she was right. She is okay. And God, that was 24 years ago, and it still makes me cry thinking about how stressful that time was, and how inspirational and helpful Lori was. Okay, so now, now I can stop crying. Okay, so it turned out Jenna needed dialysis. She started when just a few years later, she started on hemodialysis in center. She didn't want any, supplies at home. She didn't want it to be a hospital room. So she decided to do in-center, but she was by far the youngest one there. The center near us was like 52 patients, and she was the youngest one by far. And it was hard. She saw one young man, he was like 28, pass away there. They took him out. She was shocked. And one day she came home and said, am I going to lose my legs? And I said, no, why? And she said, well, there's a lot of people with amputations. And I said, well, they have diabetes. You don't have diabetes. But I mean, can you imagine? She didn't ask me that for months. She was so afraid that I was going to tell her yes, that she was going to be an amputee. So all these things you don't think about when a young person is going through these things, and the questions they don't ask because it's so frightening to maybe hear the answer. So after 3 years of dialysis, she received a kidney at age 21, and I had shared her story everywhere I could, and this was in 2006. And a woman who had been on Living Donors Online, which is a really great website for people considering being a living donor. I had posted on there, and this woman had read our story, and she came out from Ohio, and she donated a kidney to her, and was really a wonderful person, wonderful experience. And that woman, Patrice, has run the Boston Marathon every year since giving that kidney in 2006. And comes in the top of her class for age 45 and older. So, I mean, it's just amazing what she can do with one kidney. So ultimately that kidney began to fail. It wasn't a good match. It turns out they did some desensitization at the time, but it didn't work. So she was back on dialysis, and she was really feeling very sick. I mean, she lost weight. She was struggling with appetite, and so we talked to Lori, and Lori suggested doing peritoneal dialysis time. And the reason that was so great is she had so much more control. She decided to do manual PD, which is 3 times a day. She did exchanges, and she could just walk around with a fluid in her for 4 to 6 hours. She went to the prom. She went to Disneyland. She went to a convention in Virginia. She was able to go and do a lot on peritoneal dialysis, and she felt really good too. So it was a huge change for her over hemodialysis. Finding a match for her was going to be difficult because she had 100% antibodies. So we started sharing Jenna's story everywhere. I mean, I did Craigslist, I did Facebook, Instagram. I made flyers and hung them up at coffee shops. I even asked her, well, how about doing a billboard? Because I'd met this guy online who did a billboard. And I had actually called, and the billboard company said, yes, they would give me a nonprofit rate if I produced the artwork. And so I was willing to do that because the advantage of a billboard is it doesn't matter where it is. If anybody sees it, it only matters that you call your local news station and say, hey, we're so desperate for a kidney, we're putting up a billboard. And they send news crews like crazy, because they did that whenever we did something. They send a news crew because they like those good stories. It's helpful. And sometimes you can get your local media to share something. So let's see, Twitter, I shared on Twitter. There's this glass chalk, see people write their kids' sports teams and stuff on their windows. So we got the glass chalk and just wrote, my daughter needs a kidney, and our email address. And then my son put on his car, my sister needs a kidney, same email address. And we got occasionally somebody who would write to us, but the best part was when somebody would retweet it or share it on their Instagram and tag us, then we knew that people were starting to see Kidney for Jenna as a hashtag. So one day we were at our nephew's baby's baptism, and we were driving home, and somebody took the back of the car, took a picture of the back of the car and said, this honestly needs to go viral. And that was in Santa Monica. And it turns out she was a friend of Justin Bieber's. So a lot of people shared this, and we got like 2,000 emails. And it was just amazing how many people, the retweets. Oh, and also I called NBC TV, one of the reporters there who had done stories about transplants before. And I asked, don't you think this is a great story? So the next day, their film crew was there, and they covered the story. And I think, that was just luck. Like you can't plan that kind of marketing. I mean, it just was somebody else sharing it and other people caring, and then the reporter just saying, sure, it was a good day for her to do a story. Um, so during that time, posting on Facebook, I would always have to prompt my family, can you share this? Friends, could you share my post? And her godmother would do it like every week or so whenever I would post something, because I kept it fairly active. I wanted people to know that we were, diligent about this and we were looking. So Rhonda, her godmother, shared it. And then a friend of hers that she had just actually met at her high school reunion that had the same last name as her, which is sort of strange. He walked up to her and said, hey, I must be your brother. Anyway, he ended up saying, well, I'll get tested. And he lived in Arizona, and he came to Los Angeles. He got tested, and he wasn't a match for her, but he was willing to go into paired exchange. So they sat in paired exchange for 4 years, no activity. And it wasn't because he was hard to match. It was because Jenna had 100% antibodies and she wasn't going to match anyone. So the wait time here for type O kidney in Los Angeles is 10 years. And they said with her antibodies, it could be 20 years. And, I just couldn't imagine her waiting 20 years for a transplant. Plus, like Joanna was saying, you have to stay healthy, and it's hard to do when you're on dialysis. You develop other issues and things that you don't even anticipate come along. You can have trouble with your access, and then you're waiting even longer. So Gary decided he rode horses and he also had a motorcycle, and he decided to do the voucher program. So he gave his kidney, and then within a day or two, Jenna got a call that there was a good match for her. It wasn't perfect, but they wanted to do desensitization. So that worked out for her to get that kidney transplant. So that was 7 years ago, and she's doing fine. But during that time, my sister started dialysis, because it turned out now we knew she had polycystic kidney disease, as did my other sister and my brother. So I'm the only one that didn't get it, but my daughter had kidney disease. So I had all the information that they needed. So I started a campaign to help my sister find a donor, and it's harder, when my daughter was 26 and people were very sympathetic and supportive, but when you're like 60 and you need a transplant, people aren't as you're not getting the same kind of people. The people that answered us before for Jenna, they identified with her as being like their daughter or their sister. And that's why they wanted to help us. And Gary, he said the same thing. If it was my daughter, I would hope that somebody would step up and help me. So so for my sister, it was harder, but I started to just share her story, just she's expecting her first grandchild. She wants to get off dialysis. She'd been doing peritoneal for 4 years when I started. It took 3 years to find a donor, but same thing. I just kept posting and doing pictures, and I'd say, just send me a picture of anything, just, just to keep her page fresh. So on her Facebook page was where we got the most activity. And I did a couple ads, very short-term Facebook ads, maybe $10 a day for 7 days. And I targeted where I was sending the ads. So I would pick people who were animal rescue, who were interested in volunteerism, nursing, firefighters. I chose all these kind of altruistic sort of profiles of people that I had already met through my daughter's search, and targeted those people. And I did get an email from a woman whose sister had died, coming home from college, 4 girls in the cars, a terrible car accident. Her sister and the other girl in the front seat were killed. And she said, I always thought if I could save someone else, I would. So she was identifying with me as, having a sister. So that this story resonated with her. So she wrote to us back and forth, and then COVID happened, and she just disappeared. We didn't hear anything. And my sister, she's had also been in the conversations, and she said, I can't take this rejection. And I said, this is part of the search. I get rejections all the time, people that just don't follow through, but you can't give up. Anyway, after uh, probably a year and a half, I wrote to her again, and I just said, I want to see how you're doing. And she said, I'm so sorry, but with COVID and everything, I just didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't want to go to a hospital. I didn't want to get tests. I said, I totally understand that. Anyway, so she said, well, I'm ready now. So that was a shock, but you know what? Following up with her was a great, just kind of a instinct, I guess. So I talked to her a few times about coming to Los Angeles, but she has 5 kids, and she said, I don't know if I can do that. And I said, well, you could probably do it near you, and the kidney could get shipped here. Let's check and see if you're a match for her. So she decided to sign up as a donor. She wasn't a match for her, but she was also willing to go into paired exchange. And she gave I gave her an idea. I said, why don't you call the National Kidney Registry and see if you can donate she lived in Ohio. Also, these donors came from Ohio. And she did. She called, and they said she could donate at a nearby hospital to her. And in paired exchange, it would go to the recipient. And then my sister would get a voucher, same as what Gary did, and would be able to get priority in the pool as well when you have a voucher. So Lauren gave all her information, followed through with the testing. I mean, she really made it happen. And she, 2 years ago, gave a kidney to someone. And the next day, my sister got a call that they had a match for her. And that was, just an incredible experience. I think, Lauren and I are still in touch, and she just actually had a baby. She had another baby, and I know she has a lot of kids. 2 of them are her husband's, and 2 were hers. And so or 3 were her husband's, and 2 were hers. So now they have a 6th one, but it's the only one that they've had together. So anyway, she's healthy and fine, a living donor. 2 years later, have a baby. I mean, I just think that's just a wonderful gift. And we're also in touch with the swap donor that gave my daughter the actual kidney, and he lives in Pennsylvania. And it's just been all these people that we've met along the way who are living donors, even if they contacted us and they couldn't follow through, that they had obesity or borderline high blood pressure, or maybe kidney stones, or whatever the reason was. They're such wonderful people to give you hope that, a stranger would reach out and help you, save a life. And I spent a lot of time on this, and I'm sure most people wouldn't, but if it was for me, I don't know if I could. I don't think I could put myself out there. And I know my daughter and my sister didn't feel comfortable, here I am, I'm worthy, send me a kidney. It was hard for them, but it's not hard for me to advocate for them. And I think if someone has a family member or a friend that would just help them along the way, just, help answer emails, or set up a Facebook page, or do a TikTok video, or get a billboard, or, you can reach out. There are so many kind and wonderful people that are willing to help a stranger. It's just changed my whole attitude about life. I mean, I can't imagine people taking, undergoing surgery for a stranger, but they do. And it's a wonderful experience for them. And it's a wonderful experience, obviously, for the recipient. One thing, yeah, it's the strangers. You don't have to be a family member to donate. And that was a surprise to a lot of people. When we were looking, they said, don't you have any family or friends? I said, well, actually, a lot of friends did try, but they weren't qualified because of health issues or weight or whatever. But the family, there's a lot of polycystic kidney disease in our family. And so that wasn't an option either. So you don't have to be a family member to donate. Sometimes it's even a better match because family members often have the same antibodies. So um, it's great when you have somebody who has no antibodies that you have, and it's not a conflict. So I would say, I wrote an article and Lori and I did a podcast, and it goes into more detail about, finding a donor, steps to take. But the simple thing of writing on the back of your car, I mean, I've seen people, they pay a lot for the laser printed stick on decals and stuff. You don't have to do that. You could put a paper cardboard thing in your window, or you could write on the windows. That stuff came right off too. It was easy to take off, but it stayed on during the rain and everything. It was great glass chalk. And you just need to tell the story and over, and someone will hear the story and it will be meaningful to them, and they will want to help you, or they'll want to help share your story. A lot of people who weren't qualified as donors, they still shared our page, and you know, with my sister, they just sent such sweet, supportive messages and stuff. So there are a lot of kind people out there, and if they're not a perfect match, they can go into paired exchange. So there's a lot of options when looking for a living donor. And one great thing that came out of my daughter, all these people applied, 75 people tested for her at UCLA. UCLA was amazing. They sent out all these kits. They just said, let's get this done. And no one matched. But at least 5 of them went on to donate to other people at UCLA. They said, well, I'm not a match for her. Do you have anyone else? And they said yes. And so that was just such a great gift that these people who wanted to help Jenna went on to give kidneys to other people. So it was really a heartwarming result. And if anyone has any questions, or if I can help anyone, and if anybody sends me my daughter's kidney page is at the end of Lori's article. And if anybody tags me on Facebook, I will share your story. If you start a page, I mean, I will help you however I can. So I'm happy to do that.
You're such a warrior in helping people find living donors, Carol. I mean, really, you are second to none. And
Great.
the other question actually came from our last presenter, Joanna, and she wanted to know, how do you get over the shyness of asking?
Well, I am not an outgoing person, and a lot of it was done online, and it wasn't a lot of face to face. Although we did go to a car show once, my kids passed out flyers, and we met all these nice people. It's easy to talk about when it's not for me, but if you ask for me, and like I said, it's hard to ask for yourself. But I think when it's somebody you love, it's easy to say, can you help us? And I think I don't think you should ask anybody. My opinion is it's like asking for money. It's probably going to turn out badly if you have a family member ask for money. But if you just share their story, and if you tell your friends and family, look, I don't expect you to donate a kidney to me, but can you share my story? Step up and help advocate for me. I would so appreciate it, because it's so hard to ask for yourself. So
Great advice. Great advice. And Carol, thank you so much again for coming today.